Welcome to On the Road to Mobility with your host, Dave John.
Hey there. Welcome back to On the Road to Mobility. I'm your host, Dave John, and I'm glad you could join us again today. As you know, this is a podcast dedicated to helping solve the problems in getting from here to there for those who have mobility limitations or challenges. So for the next few podcasts, I'd like to get in depth into some of the differences in wheelchair-accessible minivans. Through the years, many of my clients have been confused about why they should choose a side entry versus rear entry van, or an in-floor or fold-out ramp, and which minivan manufacturers are the best to convert. I've talked about these differences in general terms in past podcasts, but I'll be taking a closer look at these questions and how and why they might be important. The first question that often comes up is whether to get a side entry or a rear entry accessible minivan. So today, we're going to take a look at the side entry van. The side entry van has a flat, lowered floor section that covers the full interior width of the vehicle and extends from just in front of the third row seats all the way to the front firewall of the cabin. The front driver's seat and the front passenger seat are then remounted on removable seat bases to compensate for the lower floor deck. Now, this arrangement means that an occupied wheelchair can be transported in the second row behind the passenger or driver's seat, or you can remove the front passenger or driver's seat and secure a wheelchair in those positions as well. And yes, that does mean that it is possible to drive these vehicles from a wheelchair depending on the wheelchair user's abilities. This flexibility in securing a wheelchair in various positions is a major advantage of the side entry option. This space also allows for more than one wheelchair depending on the size and configuration of the chairs. The ease of securing a wheelchair with manual or semi-automatic wheelchair securement systems is also an advantage of side entry vans due to the amount of interior room a flat floor design allows. Having additional room around the wheelchair when positioned for transport allows relatively easy access to the securement points on the wheelchair for the tie-downs. 4 points of securement on each corner of the wheelchair are required for these systems, and space to reach around the chair to all 4 corners makes the securement process much simpler. So this is the point where I get to remind you that if you do not find the information you are looking for in this podcast, or you would like more specific information about solutions for your mobility challenge, you can contact vehicle accessibility consultants or myself directly. I will give you the contact information at the end of this segment. When appropriate, we can refer you to a specialist in your area. And all our services are free to our private clients. So, another advantage of side entry vans is the relative ease of entry. Because the lowered floor section is flat and fairly close to the ground with the vehicle kneeled, as most minivans can now do, getting up the ramp and into the interior of the van is usually fairly easy and can even be accomplished by many manual wheelchair users. Also, a 14-inch lowered floor depth is available on side entry vans to allow for taller wheelchairs. And once inside, there is room to maneuver and even turn around depending on the wheelchair. So in many cases, you can enter and exit the van facing your direction of travel. In other words, no backing out. Also, an occupied wheelchair has to face forward while traveling. So because you enter from the side, and need to turn the wheelchair to face forward, this maneuverability is something of a requirement. That necessity to turn and face forward once inside the vehicle does lead to one of the drawbacks of a side entry van. In the case where a wheelchair is extra long, say due to elevated footrests or ventilator trays, it may not be possible to turn the wheelchair inside the vehicle. And without the ability to turn the wheelchair, it cannot face forward as required during transport. So, for longer wheelchairs, side entry vans may not be the best option. One other challenge with a side entry van is having enough room on the side of the vehicle for the ramp to deploy. This may be a consideration at home, depending on your parking arrangement. It is usually recommended that a minimum of 5 to 6 feet of accessible ground is available alongside your parking place to allow the ramp to deploy and room at the end to exit the ramp and turn. If you park inside a small garage, or you have a narrow driveway and parking spot, such as in a mobile home park, it may be difficult or impossible to find sufficient entry and exit space. The space on the side of a vehicle can also be something to keep in mind in places like public parking lots. Many lots have vehicles parked side by side, with limited space in between. This can render a side entry vehicle inaccessible when the sliding side door is blocked. However, all public parking lots are required to have van-accessible handicap spaces to alleviate this challenge. As usual, we just don't have the time to cover every possible advantage and disadvantage of side entry vans. As you can see, there are many considerations in choosing what works best for you, and often has to do with your situation and abilities. It's always best to consult with an occupational therapist or certified mobility consultant to help determine the best application for your individual mobility needs. Okay, let's stop for a moment and have a chat with someone I am very happy to have as a guest. Belinda was a client of mine at the dealership. She's a very active person. In fact, we even put hand controls on some off-road vehicles for her. She's just got such an uplifting personality, I had to ask her to come and share some of her story. Belinda, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me there.
It's wonderful to have you with us today. So, Belinda, tell us a little bit about your story to begin with. Tell us a little bit about Belinda.
Well, in 1988, I was down living in LA and we had the earthquake and a tree fell on top of me and broke my back. Changed my life. I spent a year in the hospital because I had a lot of injuries and broken bones. So it took me about 2.5 years to be able to move a little bit on my chair. So it's been a long road, but I'm here.
We're glad to hear that. Belinda, that must have been a long journey for you to go in one day from not being injured to having the level of injury that you did. Talk about that journey a little. What did you do to make your new reality part of your life?
Well, one of the things that I truly believe is that first you have to accept the state that you're in and know that life doesn't stop, but it just changes. So you have to improvise and you have to adapt and you have to overcome. And you have to really have a positive attitude, knowing that you can still use the parts that are left for the greater good with positive attitude. I had 4 little ones, so I couldn't just roll over and give up. I knew it was going to be difficult, but I needed to continue to be mom, wife, daughter, sister, mother. So my life just changed overnight, like you said. And it's been a long road. It's been very tough at times. And other times, thank God I have the support of my family, a wonderful husband, and good children that keep on making me move forward. I'm not going to say it's easy because it's a daily struggle. I struggle with pain on a daily basis. But I know that tomorrow will be a new day.
Well, that's a very positive attitude, and obviously one that has served you well through your journey. So, what did you find was the hardest thing to adjust to after your accident?
Well, there's two aspects. There's the physical and then there's the emotional and mental. From the physical aspect was wondering if I was still going to be able to maintain my quality of life as far as keeping the respect from others, doing the things that I needed to do on a daily basis, as like I said, as a wife and a mother and a sister and a daughter, and not being able to have your life having fun or difficulties in the same manner. For example, I used to love to snow ski, jet ski, water ski, skydive, and I knew that some of the things I wouldn't be able to do anymore, and some of the other things I would have to do different. And that's where the improvisation comes in and the adaptation, and then overcoming the barriers of the view of others and yourself as far as the physical mobility. I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to drive or go fishing or hunting or anything like that. But where there's a will, there's a way, and there's different possibilities in different equipments and technology that help you if you're willing to do research and accept that you do things different.
You talked a little bit about finding solutions, and earlier you wondered whether or not you'd be a driver. I know you have a variety of adaptive equipment that you use.
Mm-hmm.
Describe a little bit about the importance of the adaptive equipment in your life.
Well, one of the things that having an accessible vehicle with hand controls, it gives you freedom to move. Otherwise, I would have to depend on somebody to be giving me a ride somewhere or waiting for somebody to have time to take me to the grocery store. And this way, I have freedom to do what I need to get done and enjoy going shopping or taking a class or, well, I'm retired now, but going to work. So I'm very independent. And I have hand controls. And at the beginning, I used to be able to just use the hand controls and pull my wheelchair in. But as I'm aging, I don't have the strength to pull the wheelchair from the passenger side. So I went into a ramp vehicle because I have a manual wheelchair. And since I've been in the wheelchair 32 years, about 7 years ago, I couldn't use the ramp anymore. I didn't have the strength in one shoulder, and I had to go into an electric wheelchair. So I had to change my vehicle to a larger one. But now that my shoulder's healed, I'm back to my manual chair. But the ramp, it's a wonderful thing.
Belinda, I know you have a Honda Odyssey with the Braun fold-out conversion.
Yes.
In this particular podcast, we're talking about minivans and the pluses and minuses of different models. What were some of the things that influenced you to choose that conversion? What were some of the pieces of the puzzle for you?
The height, my Odyssey has what they call a kneel. So the pitch of the ramp is not as steep, and I can manage it on my own. Because some other vehicles don't have the kneel position. So it's a steeper one, then I would have to have somebody push me up into the van, and I didn't want that.
Right, and then it's set up for you to be a driver?
Yes. I have a transfer seat, one that swivels. On my first car, I didn't have that, so I would have to kind of get my wheelchair as close as possible to the seat and kind of transfer with a little bit of a jump. In this one, I just move it all the way back, and then I have a swivel seat, so I can just transfer a lot easier.
And then you use right angle hand controls. You pull down for gas and push in for brake?
Yes.
So, Belinda, it sounds like you found ways to, as you put it, adapt to your disability. If you had one piece of advice to give to someone who was newly disabled, what would you say to them?
I would tell them, do not give up. There's ways to do things that you've always wanted to do or that you did. They're just going to be done in a different manner. But your life doesn't stop, it just changes. You can do a lot of things in a different way, even more than you did before. So don't give up and look for the positive things. And there's good things in the midst of chaos. I mean, there's always something good in the midst of chaos, but we have to look for it.
I totally agree. And thank you. I think that's an outlook that's important to share. Belinda, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. I appreciate your time and your perspective. Thank you for sharing your positive approach to life.
You're welcome. Anytime I can help somebody, let me know.
Thanks, and have a great day.
You too. Bye.
It's great to chat with someone with such an uplifting view of life like Belinda. She has certainly found a great recipe for lemonade in her life. In today's Product Corner, we're going to look at some recent changes to the standard manual hand controls used by a large percentage of the mobility challenged drivers today. The standard manual hand controls have traditionally been physically connected to the brake and the accelerator by means of rods that would push on the appropriate pedal. So, for example, you would pull down on the hand control handle to actuate the gas and push in on that same handle to brake. The hand control transmission would move the appropriate rod to press on the desired pedal. So one of the difficulties in using this style of hand control has been that other non-disabled drivers often need to be able to drive these same vehicles, and the two rods running to the brake and gas pedals often prove to be somewhat in the way of their feet. Although it is possible to do, non-disabled drivers often find the rods irritating at best and a hindrance to properly reaching the pedals at the worst. In the last couple of years, many of the manufacturers of hand controls have devised a way of getting rid of the biggest offender in this rod dance, the accelerator rod. They have taken advantage of the fact that most modern cars are now controlled by computer and tap in electronically to the car's computer to tell the vehicle how much gas to apply. This eliminates the need to have a rod physically push on the accelerator pedal and creates a much cleaner access to the pedals for a non-disabled driver, enhancing both safety and convenience. The movement of the hand control remains the same, so the mobility challenged driver will likely not notice any major difference. Another challenge of driving a vehicle with hand controls has often been inadvertently touching the hand controls and pushing on the gas pedal by mistake. This can be a very scary experience for the non-disabled driver and everyone else in the car. With the new electronically actuated controls, the accelerator function of the hand controls can be turned off at the push of a button when the mobility challenged person is not driving. That way, if anyone accidentally pushes on the hand control, no signal is sent to increase acceleration. The brake rod is not changed and still pushes physically on the brake pedal to make the car stop. But that rod is typically mounted in a place that is much less obtrusive than the accelerator rod, so it's not in the way. One option that this electronic control has opened up is the ability to change the sensitivity of the accelerator function. In other words, how much gas is applied to the car for the distance you move the handle of the hand control. Some mobility-challenged individuals find it difficult to control the speed of the car because of how sensitive some hand controls are in some vehicles. With the new controls, it is possible to reduce the accelerator sensitivity with the flip of a switch, making it easier to control the vehicle's speed. A definite safety plus for some drivers. These new electronic hand controls have proven to be very popular. Now, if you'd like to take advantage of some of the nifty safety and convenience features these new hand controls offer, I strongly suggest talking it over with a certified driver rehabilitation specialist or certified mobility consultant before making any changes to your current driving equipment. Well, here we are again, the end of another segment. I hope you found some of our information today helpful. If you have any questions that have not been answered by our podcast, you are welcome, as always, to contact Vehicle Accessibility Consultants or myself directly at djohn@vacaccessibility.com. You can also find this information on the podcast webpage at vacaccessibility.com. And there is an email link there as well. And of course, there is never any charge to talk with us. So again, many thanks to our guest today, Belinda. She certainly made my day. As a reminder, you can check out the other segments in this series on the podcast page of our website, www.vacaccessibility.com. And please, if you have any suggestions for subjects for future podcasts, drop us a line via email. We'll do our best to get it covered. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope we can catch up again real soon. Have a great day.
We hope you enjoyed this segment of On the Road to Mobility with your host, Dave John.